The first season of House of Cards was one of Netflix's first forays into original content. And basically what the show is about, it's about this one guy named Frank Underwood, who is a politician, and he was portrayed by a few other politicians like he was supposed to become Secretary of State, but he wasn't. And now it's him The first season of House of Cards was one of Netflix's first forays into original content. Basically what the show's about is this one politician named Frank Underwood, played by Kevin Spacey. He was basically portrayed, is the best word to use for it, by the president. He was supposed to be made Secretary of State, but instead he was put back into Congress. And now the show details him, basically him using dirty politics to get ahead in the ladder of Congress and the presidency. And basically you just see his method in doing so. And it is so interesting to see basically how all this works, like how all the alliances are formed, and you don't know Frank's plan really until the very last episode of season 1. So it is just such a joy, and just, not necessarily joy, just a rush, and there's so much intrigue, like figuring out what he's doing, and how Frank is going to A, be okay, and 2, like, get ahead. And Frank is not a nice person. It is clarified. He's a very dirty politician. He's kind of evil. He's really evil. So he's not necessarily the good guy. He's just the protagonist. And it's to Kevin Spacey's credit, how they get you to root for this person just because you want to see him succeed, even though he's doing these morally reprehensible stuff. Also, his wife, Claire, also not the nicest person. But again, you're rooting for them both, even though they're not nice people. And that usually doesn't work for me. Usually I like to root for the good guys. There's very few times where I've actually rooted for the bad guys. That's very hard to do in my opinion. I mean, I know there's some people that just love bad guys and love rooting for the bad guys, but that's not me. So how they're able to do that, just keep me completely invested throughout the season and rooting for this villain, kind of. That takes a lot of work, and I have to commend them for that. My only issues is it's a linear story, and I think the story was shorter than I believe 10 or 13 episodes that it was given. So there are just a few episodes in there that just seem unnecessary. They seem like they're filler. Just need to be there because, hey, we need to fill out the runtime. Which can be forgiven, but a lot of times you want to get back to the story and it gets kind of boring when you're watching this episode. That's clearly just here because they have a minimum amount of episodes they want to finish. And this episode's just there. They're not necessarily skippable because you do still get to see Kevin Spacey. And again, it's just so enjoyable to see this Frank Underwood character that it makes up for it. With that said, it definitely could have done without those episodes. But besides that, again, there's also just so many plot lines going on that are intriguing you. Like Kate Mara plays a reporter. Her story is very interesting. There's also Peter Russo and him trying to be governor. That story is very interesting, and you just don't know how they're going to end up. The show constantly keeps you guessing. So it's definitely worth a watch. It's not for everybody. There is some parts where it can be boring, and it does seem a little bit like they're trying, not just to rip off Breaking Bad, but they're kind of piggybacking off the success of Breaking Bad in the sense of, oh, here's this evil character, watch him do evil things, and while you root for him, And even though I like watching Frank, he's a very enjoyable character to watch. He's not as interesting or as deep as, say, Walter White or something like that. He's a very simple character. He wants power and money. Not money, he wants power, and that's it. So there's not as much depth, but again, if the point of the show is you just want something to entertain you, and you want something to engross you throughout its runtime, I say House of Cards is definitely for you. See ya.